Inflation, the silent force shaping every modern economy. It touches everything from the cost of groceries and fuel to the value of savings and investments. But what exactly is inflation? Inflation refers to a sustained rise in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. This means that on average, money buys less than it used to. Imagine a simple example. If a basket of household goods cost 5,000 last year and 5,500 this year, inflation over the year is 10%. This rise means the purchasing power of each rupee has declined. You now need more money to buy the same goods. Economists usually express inflation as an annual percentage change. It is measured using indices like Consumer Price Index or CPI, which tracks how the prices of a representative basket of goods evolve over time. A moderate amount of inflation is considered healthy. It encourages spending, investment, and growth. But when prices grow too fast, stability is lost. Inflation erodes purchasing power, creates uncertainty, and affects how governments, businesses, and households plan for the future. Inflation does not come in a single form, it wears many faces, each signaling different economic conditions. One of the most common types is demand pull inflation. This occurs when aggregate demand in the economy exceeds aggregate supply. In simpler terms, when consumers, businesses, and the government collectively want to buy more goods and services than producers can meet, then prices rise. This too much money chasing too few goods scenario drives prices upward. Another important form is cost push inflation, caused by rising production costs. This might happen due to increases in wages, raw materials, or energy prices. For example, if the price of oil spikes, transportation and manufacturing costs rise, pushing overall prices higher even if demand remains constant. There is also built in inflation linked to adaptive expectations. Workers and firms anticipate inflation and adjust wages and prices accordingly, creating a self fulfilling cycle often called the wage price spiral. Each type has different causes and implications, making it crucial for economists and policymakers to diagnose the underlying drivers correctly. Inflation emerges from multiple interconnected factors that influence the price level in an economy. First, an increase in the money supply is a primary driver. When more money chases the same quantity of goods and services, prices tend to rise, a concept rooted in the quantity theory of money. Second, demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand outstrips aggregate supply. This often follows expansionary fiscal policies, such as increased government spending, or monetary policies like lowering interest rates, which stimulate consumer and business expenditures. Third, cost push inflation arises when production costs increase. Rising prices of essential inputs, such as oil, raw materials, and wages, compel businesses to pass those costs on to customers through higher prices. Additionally, supply shocks like natural disasters or geopolitical conflicts can suddenly disrupt production, reducing supply and pushing prices upward. Fourth, inflation expectations play a crucial role. When households and firms anticipate future price rises, they adjust wages and prices accordingly, giving rise to the wage price spiral that perpetuates inflation. Lastly, fiscal policies such as tax increases or subsidies can also affect production costs or demand, influencing inflationary pressure. Understanding these causes is essential for diagnosing inflation and formulating effective economic policies. Inflation impacts an economy in many profound and far reaching ways. Firstly, inflation erodes the purchasing power of money. Consumers find that their income buys fewer goods and services than before, reducing living standards, especially if wages do not keep pace with rising prices. Low and fixed income households often suffer the most, since a greater share of their income goes towards essentials like food and energy, which tend to increase in price during inflationary periods. Second, inflation can lead to increased interest rates. Central banks may raise rates to curb inflation, making borrowing more expensive for individuals and businesses, which can slow economic growth. Third, Inflation distorts investment returns, particularly for fixed income assets like bonds, reducing real returns and discouraging savings and long term investment. Fourth, inflation impacts income distribution, widening inequality, since those with variable incomes or assets that appreciate with inflation may benefit, while others lose purchasing power. Additionally, inflation can reduce export competitiveness as domestic goods become more expensive on the global market. Finally, businesses face increased costs and uncertainty, which complicates pricing, budgeting, and long term economic planning. Understanding these effects is crucial for grasping why controlling inflation forms a central objective of economic policy. Central banks and governments employ a variety of tools to manage and control inflation effectively. A primary instrument is monetary policy, where central banks adjust interest rates to influence borrowing and spending. By raising interest rates, borrowing becomes more expensive, slowing down consumer demand and business investment, which eases inflationary pressures. Lowering rates has the opposite effect, stimulating economic activity when inflation is low. Open market operations involve the buying and selling of government securities by the central bank. Selling bonds reduces money supply in the economy, tightening liquidity and helping to curb inflation. Buying bonds injects money back into the system, encouraging spending and investment. Another key tool is the cash reserve ratio (CRR), which mandates how much money commercial banks must keep in reserve. Raising the CRR reduces the funds banks can lend, contracting the money supply to help control inflation. Central banks also use forward guidance, communicating future policy intentions clearly to shape expectations and stabilize inflation outlook. When businesses and consumers trust that inflation will remain controlled, they make more stable financial decisions. Governments can complement monetary measures with fiscal policies, such as reducing public spending or increased taxes to limit excess demand in the economy. In some cases, supply side policies like improving infrastructure, encouraging competition, and stabilizing exchange rates help reduce cost push inflation. Policymakers strive to maintain price stability, fostering sustainable economic growth. This concludes our lecture on inflation. Thank you for joining this session.